Thank you so much for participating in the networking activity. I hope you all learned something new about someone else if you already knew the person or met someone new. Okay. So as I mentioned before, at around 6:30, the very top of this presentation, all of today's presentation materials can be found at our official GitHub, github.com/arladies-irvine. I also pasted the more specific link to all of this meeting's materials at the very top of the chat. So if you scroll to the top, you'll be able to find it and follow along with this presentation and read the speaker bios. Again, I've also included the link to the speaker bios and the link to where you can anonymously submit questions for the panelists in the chat as well. So again, welcome. If you weren't here exactly at 6:30, my name is Alyssa Columbus. I'm the founder of Our Irvine, and I'm so excited to have you all here today for the Our Irvine and Scatter Data Podcast Data Science Career Panel. And I can't iterate this enough. Welcome, whether you're an R novice or R expert, whatever your interest or skill level in R, statistics, or data science, this group is for you and you're welcome here. And yeah, I always love to reiterate the Our Ladies Global mission every meeting. Our Ladies Global is a worldwide organization that promotes gender diversity in the art community via meetups and mentorship in a friendly and safe environment. That means that no question is a stupid question. Please feel free to ask all the questions that you would like to the Google form that I've pasted in the chat, and at any time during the announcements as well. Yeah, we're all here to learn and grow together, and that's why I made this chapter, to enable and empower women in the Southern California and especially the Irvine and Orange County area to be able to learn and mentor each other, learn from and mentor each other. So I'd also like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Our global sponsors include the R Consortium, our studio, R Forwards, NASA, and the NASA Datanauts program, of which I'm honored to be a member. Our local sponsors and friends also include Microsoft and their developer advocates team, O'Reilly Media, Edwards Life Sciences, OC Rug, the OCR users group, and many different departments in UC Irvine, including but not limited to the UC Irvine Athena Breast Health Network and the UCI Data Science Initiative. So going into our announcements, Our Ladies Irvine has a really cool website. It's made with Blogdown and Hugo, all open source technologies. It's made with R, pretty much. And yeah, we'd love to have each of you, or like, yeah, we'd have to have each of you contribute a blog post to it. As you can see at the top here, we have a blog. Anything cool related to data science, especially with R, building an R package, presenting something on R, doing anything cool related to R, we'd love to hear about it, and we'd love to have it featured on our blog. So yeah, if you're interested, please feel free to email us at irvine@ourladies.org. This email address is here on the website, and it's also on the last slide of this presentation. Okay, also what's going on right now is the R Foundation's Use R 2020. It's this huge global R conference with pretty much everyone from the international R community. And it's all online this year, which is really nice. So we don't have to travel all the way to Europe or somewhere across the United States to see all of the valuable R content that people present here. So yeah, you can view all of the recorded keynotes, tutorials, and contributed sessions online at useR2020.rproject.org. I was honored to present a contributed session on R for data privacy and governance. But yeah, there's hours and hours of valuable R content to help you not only learn R, but also improve your skill set with R and improve your workflows. So yeah. Also, the National Institute of Statistical Sciences has an essential data science for business overview. This is also free, and you'll get to learn about the top 10 analytical approaches used in business contexts. This is next week, next Wednesday, on July 29th, 2020, from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. Finally, we meet every other month on the third Tuesday of the month, and we'd like to invite you all to come to our September meeting as well. We're narrowing down the speakers, but either way, if you join us, you'll learn something new about R. And it's also going to be online. Yeah, and it's going to be the same time, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Pacific. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Javier Orraca, our moderator, and we're going to go ahead and get started with our data science career panel at exactly 7 o'clock. Woo!
Thank you, Alyssa. Appreciate the introductions and announcements, and thank you all for joining. It's a real honor to be here moderating this event, and I can't thank Alyssa and Madeline Bauer enough for helping me put this together, and working with them has been great. And for all the panelists, thank you so much for being able to make this. So I would like to start with just some introductions from the panelists themselves so that the audience can get to know them. I see Colleen, so I'm going to start with her, please. So Dr. Colleen Kelly, if you don't mind, please giving us an introduction about yourself, that would be excellent.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for inviting me to this panel discussion. Yeah, so I got my PhD from UCSD quite some time ago, and mathematics actually, because they don't have a statistics program there. So my PhD was in statistics, and even though I had to take all the math all the math requirements to finish that up. And then I worked in academia for 15 years. And after a certain amount of time, I started getting into consulting and went off and started my own company after a couple of stints working as a consultant. And I've been doing that now for about 10 years, where I've had my own company. And I work with a lot of biotech in San Diego. It's a really exciting place to work because there are so many startups here doing biotechnology. So
that's great.
That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you. Let's see. I see Miss Leondra James as well.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Javier?
I'm doing well. So yeah, thank you for being here as well. And if you could give us a brief background, that would be excellent.
Yeah. So I'm Leondra. I am a manager of analytics and data science at a advertising agency in Los Angeles called Quigley Simpson. Prior to that, I was also working in the advertising industry in the operations research side as opposed to the marketing side, which I'm working on now. And my background is primarily in the entertainment, media, and advertising agencies. So anything media related, music, film, television. I've even worked on the studio side, having worked for Sunset Studios, which is a real estate company that owns different Hollywood studios, and working with their operations and marketing and financial initiatives there. And then currently I'm also sort of a part-time PhD student at the University of the Cumberlands. I am studying information technology with a specialization in data science. And prior to that, my academic background is in entertainment and business.
Awesome, thank you. And you're also an R user. We met at the R hackathon last year, so.
Yep.
All right, good to have you. Let's see. Would Dr. Z Yang please provide an overview of your background?
Okay, sure. So hello everyone, my name is Z. So my background is actually in biostatistics. I obtained my PhD in biostatistics from University of Southern California last year. And then during my last year in Southern California, I actually get to organize our users group called LA East our users group with some of the other organizers at USC as well. And also get to participate in some of the local art events in Southern California area, like, Orange County, our users group, and also Our Ladies in LA. I know I'm pretty active on Twitter, and then some people, if you follow my Twitters, I talk about Bayesian inference a lot, and then a lot of things about art, data visualization, and then also like how to do like self-promotion using social media to seek for data science jobs. And then actually before going into the biostatistics field, I was a chemistry major, and then and also international students as well. So I feel like, definitely changing my major from chemistry to biostatistics as one of the very important life decisions I've made. And then, so currently I'm working as a biostatistician at a biotech company in Seattle called NanoString Technologies. I know my job title is not technically data scientist, but I don't think it does not necessarily differentiate my job descriptions. Working as a data scientist, we meet with customers, get to know the business question that interesting, clean the data, apply the methodologies, modeling, and then generate reports and then present the data. So pretty much has shared a really similar workflow as like a data scientist in another field as well. And then so I think that pretty much summarized my background. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hello?
Sorry about that. I was on mute.
Oh, okay. Oh, no problems. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Z. So I just saw Miss Tiffany Collins. Tiffany, if you don't mind providing a background, that'd be great.
Yes. Hi, Javier. Thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. I'm honored to be amongst these very, very talented ladies. So my background, I don't feel as scientific as the ladies on this panel, because I started social media when before it was a job title. I was a social media manager. But back in 2008, 2009, I started working with a internationally recognized rock band called MXPX as their social media manager. Now, again, this was back before it was a real job title, so it was just kind of like, here is our Facebook. Why don't you play with it and see if you can figure out any of this? So it went from playing around with it to discovering that there was analytics to it, to discovering what that meant, to fast forward now, and now I work in the public sector. I work for Saddleback Valley Unified School District as a web content developer, which is a fancy way of saying I'm in charge of not only making the content and putting it up on the website by coding it either into the website or having one of our developers help us with that, and all the way down to presenting the analytic information to our Board of Education and other stakeholders so they can help make decisions on how the website should go in which direction and what content we focus on. So my job started as something of make cute little hashtags for a punk band, and it went all the way to now, especially with coronavirus happening, put very important information out to a lot of people, 34,000 students to be exact, and 5,000 teachers, and do it in a timely, concise manner in multiple languages. So I've seen my job title kind of transform over the years to kind of a joke. No one did social media for a living, to now I'm considered almost like a data scientist. I'm on this panel for that. So it's been a wild ride over the last 10 years, but it's been fun. Academically, I went back to school later in life. I finished my bachelor's degree. I have a bachelor's in communication 18 years after starting it. I went back to school as a single mom with a preschooler, and I ended up graduating summa cum laude from Eastern Washington University with a BA in communications. So I am one of those people who kind of just does anything in what order I think it works in. And that seems to work well for me in social media. And again, I'm honored to be on this panel. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Dr. Karin Kricorian. If you don't mind providing a background, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, I also kind of started in academia. I thought I wanted to be a professor. Did a PhD in marketing at Stanford, and kind of realized that it would be nice to know something about marketing before trying to teach at a business school, which is kind of the track you go on if you do a PhD in a business school. So I said, well, I'll get a job, and I was in LA because my husband was doing his education here. So I thought, well, okay, entertainment, Disney, and so. And that was 20 years ago, so it's been a while. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of different things at Disney, all associated with analytics in various forms. Started out doing web analytics for our websites, did e-commerce for Disney Store and our parks websites, worked on some of the first cruise line e-commerce sites that we had, so that was kind of a little bit of a claim to fame. After working on the website for a few years, moved over to the theme parks to do attendance forecasting, and worked out of Anaheim for about 12 years doing a variety of different things, picked up different responsibilities over time for Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Had great fun, had the opportunity to work on Shanghai Disney doing, did a lot of market research, did operations research, sizing, sort of figuring out how big to make it, how many rides to put in there, etc. And after about a little over a decade in theme parks, I had seen enough churros to last me an entire lifetime. And so I wanted to try something different, and had, over time, of course, worked with different people across the company. And there was a role open leading a data science consulting team that works out of the corporate office in Burbank, and took that role and have been there the past couple of years, and work with all the different parts of the Walt Disney Company, which is very cool. Do a lot of work with studios and television as well as theme parks. And so, get to have a chance to kind of jump in and out of a lot of different businesses and do analytics for them, which is a lot of fun.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and it's nice to have you on the panel. So for all the panelists, just one note before I start going into the questions here. If you have any comments you want to make after I ask an individual, a question, feel free to chime in at the end of their answer, their response, if you have any additional thoughts you'd like to provide on a specific question. So Tiffany, I would really like to start with you. I love the story that you were in social media data science before it was even a career. I mean, at that point in time, I would say most social media platforms were really, just for fun. It took a while for, MySpace to develop and really make a business out of it, as well as Facebook. Even early, like rock band message boards. That was one of the earlier forms of social media that I remember very well from that era in the early 2000s. What has it been like seeing an entire industry mature around social media, and what are some examples of projects that you've been engaged in, more recently?
It has been crazy to watch it change. I remember in 2008, 2009, when I started to do social media as a job where I actually got paid for it, people were like, that's not a job. There's no way that that's an actual job. So you got to think, so this is 2008, 2009. MySpace came about 2003. So it was still basically a baby, but it was the big baby at the time. It was what people considered teenagers on. But, our band started a page on there. We started to find that their fan base, their customers, the people buying the tickets were on there. And when you're a small band on a big label that maybe doesn't get a lot of attention, you got to go to your fans. And I was fortunate enough to work with a band that saw that early on. So it started with, having a MySpace and then having a Facebook, because by 2004, Facebook had started as well. By 2006, Twitter had started, and we really started to see that there was steam here. This was more than just kids messing around, or, this was more than just a fad. This was something that was really going to be a thing. When Instagram came around in 2010 or 2010, we started to see, okay, this is going to be more than just words. This is going to be more than just sharing pictures with grandma. This is going to be how people make money, and that there's going to be more to it. So it went from watching it be careful what you post on your social media. You may not get that job right out of college. Your interviewer is going to Google you, find that picture of you doing a kegger, and your career is over. To now I hear students who are, they're about to graduate from high school and they have 200,000 TikTok followers, and they're going to make that their career and move out to LA, and that's like their thing. So, and they're encouraged to do that. So it's just crazy to watch it go from something of it's a trap, it's a pitfall, it's a time waster, to now it's big business. I mean, Facebook is no longer the startup we thought it was in 2008. It's now a billion-dollar probably corporation. It's huge, and it can even shape our political outcomes. So to see the it has taken and wielded, I can only imagine 10 years from now what it's going to look like. It's going to be insane. And in that, and listening to what social media and what the data says behind it, we've kind of I've taken on projects and kind of shifted them around where I see the most eyeballs are kind of landing. And I've noticed even on social media, this year especially, anything tied to voice got really big. Podcasts, especially after coronavirus, everyone had a podcast. Yeti bikes were sold out on Amazon right away. Everyone wanted a podcast. So we started a podcast for our district. It seemed silly at first. We're like, who's going to listen to this? We started it late last year, kept it going this year. We've taken a little break because coronavirus got crazy. But we started a podcast where we just kind of broke down what are our frequently asked questions in the school district? What do people want to know about? So we looked at the calendar and we said, okay, so we know we've got interdistrict transfers coming up. And it's not a sexy, fun topic. No one wants to make content about interdistrict transfers. It's boring to sit there and have me talk to a screen and tell you, okay, if you want to transfer your student from this school to this school, this is how you do it. Instead, we just took the person who's in charge of that department, took our director of communications. We're like, we're going to have you sit down. I'm going to film it on one section. I'm going to do the voice on the other. And this is going to be 5 different pieces of content. It's going to be a 30 minute to an hour long podcast. It's going to be multiple social media clips. It's going to drive people not only to your website, but to also our streaming services, like everything that we're doing, and circle back around to come to our website where you'll get all the information. Let me put faces behind, who's in charge of interdistrict transfers. Well, it's this particular person in this particular department. Now, here he is in an interview with all of the information. Do you have more questions? Here's how you get it. So we took that and we made it bite-sized and we made it very accessible, because that's also a big thing that's changed a lot over the last 10 years is how people consume the information. So not only did we take that information, make it a podcast, make it a video, but then we put captions on it. So you make sure everybody who comes across the website, whether they're viewing the website on their phone or on a tablet or on a full laptop, or whether they're using a device that allows them to do a screen reader, they can see it, read it, hear it, and grab that content. So it's about now taking that social media content, making it as accessible as possible, and then putting it out into the world. And I think that was probably the biggest shift I've seen, is being much more conscious about not only what content we're putting out, but how we're putting out. So that's definitely the biggest change.
Yeah, thank you. Great perspective, thank you. So Z, I'd like to ask you, you recently completed your PhD to pursue a career at the intersection of biostatistics and data science. Do you mind walking us through sort of the rationale of why you pursued the PhD in biostatistics and how the PhD prepared you for a career outside of academia?
Oh yeah, sure. So most of the people, when they know me, they'll know I was doing PhD back then. I was doing PhD in biostatistics at USC. But actually, prior to that, I was majoring in chemistry in my undergraduate when I was back in China. I didn't even know there is a major called biostatistics then. It was a quite few, a new field there. And then so once I came to the States and then get a chance to talk to some of the people working in the public health school, I found this major fascinating. You get to involve, work with data a lot and then answer some of the real life, questions out there, especially the public health domain. And then, so at that time, after you change it to a new majors, it's actually less likely for me to pursue a PhD. That wasn't my first choice. But luckily, I had an internship in one of the pharmaceuticals in Chicago during my, first year. And then at the time, I was talking to some of the people, in the company, and also, much advanced in the career. So that was the chance I actually get a very important piece of suggestions. If you would like to, essentially in the future, lead a project in the future, and then get to handle more complicated work, and then it's actually suggested to get a PhD. And then especially at that time, my goal was still stay in the healthcare industry. So that was the time. And of course, back then, data science wasn't as popular as it is right now. And then I remember that I don't even see much data scientist position hanging around when I was in Chicago. So actually gradually when I, about to finish my PhD, I get myself exposed to the R community and then the data science community as well, get to participate in a couple of like data science hackathon, and then also give talks out there. And then I feel like, the more I look into those opportunities, and then I feel like my PhD definitely has prepared me to start to pick up this, career. For example, during PhD, you definitely have to be able to conduct independent research on the projects that no one has never worked on before. Yet there is probably some of the prior, foundation laid out there, but most likely what they were asking you is to develop something that never existed and to be able to push this, research field forward. So that actually requires a lot of patience and then work to start to read papers and then understand what's going on in the community, stay tuned with some of the masters out there. And then sometimes like the data was not even there. You have to get your data and then develop the pipeline by yourself. Most of the times when you start to get into the field and have some results to share with others, I feel like doing a PhD definitely improved a lot about my presentation skill sets, because every week I have to meet with either my professors or the physicians on the team and get to share what I have found recently. Sometimes it could be like twice a week. And then by the time when the paper was ready, I also need to present the results to a committee members for grant renewal, where they pretty much invite expert in this field from other universities come over to USC. So we have to present, what kind of papers and research work we have done, and then the softwares we also developed, for another scientist to be able to apply our methods. And then this is not even including the opportunities for you to go on conferences and then get to know another excellent works done out there and get to networking with other scientists. And then also when I was at the USC, as a PhD student, you get paid by either doing research or work as a teaching assistant in some of them under undergraduate or master level classes. I think be able to teach at those classes definitely prepare me for the data science career as well. Because I remember one of the professor told me that you never learn something, you never learn until you have to teach someone this knowledge. So I think that part of experience definitely helped me to quickly pick up new things, emerging in the data science field, and then kind of stay tuned with what's going on in this field as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Colleen, I'd like to ask you next, because you've had experience in academia and in industry, working as a consultant or corporations. You've worked with a lot of people of wide educational backgrounds, of a wide range of educational levels. Can you just please discuss the benefits of working with data science teams that have that kind of diversity in education levels, from, let's say, bachelor's all the way to PhD?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, so when in the business that I do, we usually are working on a project that requires a team of people to handle all the aspects of the job. And so having people with different sets of talent skills, I think, is really helpful to do that. You often want someone with a strong methodological background to make sure that the statistical methods being applied are appropriate, but then to actually apply those for any particular project, there's lots of programming which needs to be done, and usually the programmers are at more of a master's level, but I have had some people at the bachelor's level also help with that, doing the programming and creating tables and summary statistics. And then there's always a huge QC portion of a project. So it's, when presenting data and reports to a client, it's extremely important to have every single number correct, and all the typos corrected, because even a typo can reflect badly on your business. They might not trust the rest of your results if you can't spell a word correctly, for example. So, so I think a team where, you know, where we have different people doing different jobs, some people are better at communication, some people are really detail oriented and are going to be really good at making sure all the data is correct and that the tables are pretty. And then there's, you know, the statisticians that have to make sure the statistics make sense and are explained correctly. So I think it's really fun to work with a team like that and to try to figure out what people's talent sets are and try to use those effectively.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. Leondra, I'd like to ask you next. I find it interesting that you've been in the corporate world for 5 years or so, and just recently you decided to make a move back into a PhD program. So what was your experience that now leads you to pursue a PhD?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And it's actually sort of twofold. If not, there's potentially 3 reasons why I went to pursue a PhD. I would say the first reason is because of personal reasons. In my family background, a PhD is unprecedented in my background. And so I thought it was a personal achievement that I could sort of pursue. And I knew that it was something that I could do. And I just think that it'd almost be like a waste for me to not do something that I knew I was able to do. A part of it was the sort of the ability to choose to work in academia at some point, should I want to do that. Although that was never honestly an aspiration that I had. I sort of always saw myself working in industry. But it's nice to sort of have that, I guess, option, when I, maybe I get tired of industry or something when I get older. So I kind of like that option. And, there's a little bit of me wanting to, I guess, understanding and applying the scientific method is very important, but I don't think a PhD was necessary for me personally to learn that. I think it certainly adds rigor and discipline and structure to that, obtaining that knowledge, but I don't think that it was necessarily required. But I would say a main driver of pursuing a PhD after years in the industry is job security as well. Because in complete honesty, I have noticed, and it's funny because someone in our group, we're talking about this before we came back to the main session, which is how interesting it is, the hiring process for quote unquote data scientists. And there is sort of they almost filter out folks sometimes, it seems like, if they don't have a PhD, or it's very preferred for some industries or for some companies. And I'm just a person who likes to optimize my chances, so that is also part of the reason. But I don't think, knowledge-wise, that it was required for me.
Okay, thank you. Yep. And Tiffany, sort of a follow-up question. You brought this up during your introduction, but you returned to finish your bachelor's 18 years after being in the field working. I guess what kind of perspective did this give you? And what would you say to someone who might feel as if, if they've missed their window to return to school on a topic that they're real passionate about?
I definitely think so when I started college originally, I went right after high school. I was 18, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And if I would have stuck with it then, I mean, there was no social media classes. There was a communications degree, obviously, but no one knew that I could have done that. This job just didn't exist then. So for me, I dropped out of school because I thought I was wasting my time. I also came from a working class background. It wasn't really expected that I'd go to college. It was just like, just move out. So once I had gone into the workforce and had started working in social media and done the analytics side, I realized that the only thing really standing between me and going to the next level with my career was a line on my resume that said I had a bachelor's degree. And it seemed silly, but it seemed so necessary. I couldn't even get my foot in the door sometimes. So for me, going back later, not only did I have more motivation because I saw the holes that were missing for me, but I also had, I couldn't mess around. I couldn't go party my butt off because I'm 20 and it's fun. I had a little kid at home. I had to prioritize very, very closely on how I do my work, when I do my work, how I stay up, when I could actually go out. And then because I had such little time, I had to really focus, okay, what do you want to do? You only have, I'd come to Eastern Washington University with my associates already done. I went and did it at a junior college. And so I knew I only had 2 years in an actual university. Like, what do you want to do? And so I hit the ground running. I knew I wanted to do communications. I knew I liked social media, and I knew I wanted to present at conferences. And so I did all of those things. And I think because I had such little time and because I took such a long break, I had a time to go, okay, what do you like? Where are your passions? Where do they cross? And now what's missing? For me, I had the creativity and the knowledge to edit together these cool videos, make these cool graphics, and get them on social media. And I had the ability to look at the analytics to be like, okay, I get most of this, but I've only gone to high school, so I don't get a lot of it. I get enough to be dangerous, though, but I couldn't convince enough people that they should hire me because of that. So I went back to school. I focused super hard, and for me, being in my 30s, going back was the best decision I made. I graduated summa cum laude. If you would have told me in high school I could have done that, I would have laughed at you. I barely graduated high school. So for me, the age came with just so much more focus that I just never had before. And there's no way I could have done it younger. So if you're older and you think about going back to school later in life, 30s, 40s, or even way beyond that, as long as you're passionate, you'll be fine. Because I feel like as you get older, you stop caring as much about what all the peanut gallery around you has to say. And there'll be a lot of it. You're sitting around a bunch of 20-year-olds and you're in your 30s. They're like, oh, they had a canker. And, I was up with my teething, 3-year-old. You're going to have different lives. They're going to talk, and it's fine. You have to be okay with that. And you have to know that you're there to learn. You're paying to be there to learn. And raise your hand and give answers and have them get you like she knows everything, who she thinks she knows everything. It's okay because your professors will respect you. You'll get more out of them, and your education will be worth more to you because you took the time to focus in on it. So it's never too late. I'm a big believer that my education's not done now. It won't be done when I have a PhD, and it won't be done until I'm dead. I'm going to keep learning. So it's never too late.
Thank you. Thank you for that perspective. Karin. So after receiving your bachelor's in psychology, you pursued a PhD in marketing. What led you to pursue the PhD specifically in marketing? And when you started that program, did you already know that you wanted to pursue a career at a media and entertainment company?
I think it's interesting because I feel like my whole life is kind of a path of sort of being goal oriented, but also sort of being attracted by shiny objects. And so, I was doing an undergrad in psychology, and I thought I would want to do a PhD in that. And then I got to know some folks who are doing graduate degrees in business. And I was like, gosh, I didn't even know you could do a PhD in business. And I was interested in human behavior. I was interested in analyzing people. And I was interested especially in how do you convince people. And so, you know, thinking about where can I best learn about persuasion, you know, a marketing PhD program is really a fantastic place. So I thought, okay, I thought I was going to be a professor. I'm going to do a PhD in marketing and be a professor at a business school because this is really where my interest lies. And as I was doing my PhD, you know, I got more interested in marketing and trying to understand what was going on in business because I had no business experience. I went straight from my undergrad to my PhD, and just was really excited about all the things that were happening in terms of the ability to understand how people were behaving. So as I was in grad school, you know, the internet was really kind of gathering force, and to be able to analyze how people acted versus what they said they were going to do was just super exciting. And so I thought, oh gosh, I want to be closer to that in the real world. And so, and that's kind of why I chose to go into industry. I thought, oh, you know, I'll go into academia back there sometime. And you know, it's been 20 years and maybe it'll happen at some point, but it hasn't happened yet. So and in terms of why I went to Disney, I'd always been interested in Disney. And I thought, well, gosh, if you're going to use technology to better understand how people are behaving, what better place than someplace where they're looking to be entertained, where they're really revealing themselves in terms of their behavior, right? Because it's a purely optional activity. It's not something they're being forced to do, like go to the DMV. They're doing it because they want to. And so in that way, I kind of, I had paths that I thought I was on and then sort of meandered away from them and kind of continue to do that. I think that it's important to both have goals, but also be open to different possibilities, because you never know what's going to kind of come across your path. Like the way I sort of think about it, it's like I could have a goal of being a basketball player, but if I end up being 5'2", that I need to change that goal, right? I might be a great gymnast, but I'm not probably going to be a great basketball player if I'm too short to be that. And so I think taking advantage of the opportunities that present themselves to you is something that is really important, and you need to keep your eyes open as well as, you know, pushing yourself towards your goals.
Thank you. Thank you. Z, we had a great conversation a few weeks back just about the benefits of, you know, community groups, joining a community group, just on a topic that interests you, especially if you're looking to make a career move or a career pivot into a certain field. Can you talk about what some of these community groups can offer participants and some of the benefits that you yourself have gained from them?
Oh yeah, sure. I think like I'm first gonna skip some of the obvious benefits, like, you know, you're gonna improve your networking skills just by simply talking to people in the local meetups, or and then definitely your presentation skills if you decide to give a talk as a speaker. So I feel like the biggest things I've learned, it's like by engaging a community, it changed my perspective of looking at something and learning something new. Like, for example, when I first started joining a community, to be honest, I don't feel like I have anything to offer, maybe except for my dissertation I did at the time, and then where I implement like a Bayesian hierarchical models in genomic data for, you know, to research, to investigate cancer development. So at the time, I was really surprising that people, you know, in the local Southern California, our community was really interested in learning that topic. So I decided to, you know, give a talk about it, because that kind of model usually they're seeing, it's only applied to like text, where it rarely applied to the genomic data. So they found the topic really fascinating, but at the same time, so you give me a lot of encouragement to continue exploring new things about art. And then also when you know, interact with people either in the local meetup in person, or, you know, right now I do most of the times, you know, on Twitter right now, and then people get really excited about, you know, the new findings about art, and then would like to share, you know, what you have learned about it. It could be as simple as just like you know, a simple trick you learn about art, and then, or it could be some like really nice data visualizations you did. By the way, there is a weekly activities called Tidy Tuesday, where there is people that posting a very interesting data set and have it curated, and then you can send your data visualization and share with the rest of the community. So a lot of things like this definitely help to form a really positive feedback loop, where I try to learn a new things, share with the community, and then people would there appreciate what I have done, and then cheer over it. And then so that's kind of like keep me continually engaged and motivated to learn more things about art. So and then, for example, so when you learn some little things, my first instincts would be, oh, I should tweet about that to that my art friends know about it. And then sometimes when you collectively get a lot of information about the same topic, and then I immediately to think about, maybe I should go to a local art meetup and then tell them, all the interesting about this specific topic. For example, I give a talk about all the awesome things you can do using R Markdown. Like, using R Markdown, you can build a website like just Alyssa, point out Our Lady's website. You can, build interactive slides and then both show codes and then the data visualization, and then also dashboards, a lot of things you can do. And then, so I feel like, to summarize, that it's like, engaging a community give me this kind of mindset that definitely helped me to, learn new things and then systematically summarize what I've learned in the past. Yeah. And then another things I want to just mention briefly is keep really active in the community, also help with my confidence level, especially during my last 2 years of my PhD. When things get really difficult, and then you can get frustrated with your research work or not making much progress on that. So sometimes when I deviate myself from my PhD work and then get to hang out with my friends in the art community and then talk about the other things I learned about art, and also that definitely give me a lot of confidence back, and they help me to deal with the difficulties I encountered in my PhD studies. So this is maybe another things I found is super useful, that something that's just as small as creating a data visualization or sharing Shining dashboard can help me to bring my confidence back and then continue to overcome of the difficulties in my another field. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. Colleen, as an entrepreneur in data science consulting and statistics, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being an independent consultant?
Yeah, nice question. It has been a big change, especially going from academia to running my own business. In academia, I think you have a lot more flexibility on the projects that you work on. Most of the time you make up your own problems and solve them. You have sort of almost unlimited time to get those things done. And as working as a consultant, working for other people, the projects and the problems are brought to you by your clients, and you have a pretty limited amount of time to work on those projects. I actually really enjoyed being in academia. It was really a different experience than what I'm doing now, but I also really enjoy what I'm doing now. Part of running your own business is being, not having a boss. Being the boss is really freeing and rewarding, but it can be stressful as well. And I really enjoy working on problems that are real problems, more applied problems these days. But there are problems that my clients really want to have solved. So I think that's very interesting. It's one other thing about running your own business is it can be a bit of feast or famine in terms of the projects that you get. And so there are times when you don't you're not that busy. And then other times where I'm working every night and weekends. And, you know, that's fun with me as well. I like to hire more people and try to get more people involved to try to take some of the load off of my shoulders when that happens. But yeah, so those are some of the differences.
Thank you. Thank you. Leondra, I'd like to follow up with you next on a topic we've talked offline about probably multiple times now, but there's somewhat of a mismatch between the skills anyone would need to succeed as a data scientist versus the skills that recruiters or HR specialists or like automated HR systems value when they're trying to fill a specific data science role. You come from a non-technical background. You know, I think you're a violinist. So what advice would you have for people interested in analytics and data careers that don't come from a heavy math or programming background?
Yeah, man. I would say, I would first reiterate that there is more than one path, because it can feel lonely if you don't come specifically from a STEM or technology background or statistics or mathematics background. Now, granted, obviously you have to learn all that stuff, but you don't have to fit the mold where if you don't have a bachelor's in mathematics or computer science or something like that, then you're completely screwed. I would not say that about anyone, but I would say that I either recommend that you take some sort of structured program, whether for some people that's a master's program, for some people that's a boot camp. Now there's pros and cons related to boot camps that I think the community talks about very often. But at the end of the day, I think it depends on the person and their commitment to learning the material. Because if you have the curiosity and desire and the time to learn it, and the commitment to learning that, you can learn it. I try to push myself away from the school of thought that only some people are cut out to do certain things, because I think that it's very damaging and that it has led many different underrepresented groups to believing that they can't enter this field or be software engineers or be doctors or whatever have it. So I first want to say that it is possible, but I would highly encourage those individuals to, if they do want to go into data science, first understand what you like about it, because now it seems like there's a very wide definition of what a data scientist is. Maybe you want to be a data engineer, or maybe you just want to be an analyst, or maybe you want to be, maybe you want to work in manufacturing or something. Maybe there's a domain expertise that you actually have. And if you do, I would lean on that. Because for me, for instance, with my background in music, I leaned into that and decided to pursue analytics in the entertainment industry, because my undergrad was sort of a coupled liberal arts program between music and business. So I felt like that was a good foundation, and that it wasn't just, throw everything away and start from scratch. It's like, no, I have this domain expertise, and I actually find that in the interview process, especially if it's for like an entertainment company, like a gaming company or a studio, I tend to have a little bit more preference there. So if you want to go into data science or analysis, or you want to be a statistician, or you want to be a data engineer or a computer scientist, whatever it is that you want to do, I would recommend considering leaning into the background that you currently have and learning how data mining or machine learning or descriptive analysis or business intelligence, how that applies to your current field. I think that's a really good thing to lean in on.
Thanks, Leondra. Thank you. Karin, you've had a series of roles with increasing responsibilities at Disney. Do you feel like you were on your own, or were there mentors who encourage you to take on these new roles and responsibilities?
That's one thing that I think, I think Tiffany and Leondra talked a little bit about kind of coming from more, maybe more modest backgrounds where, and I kind of come from that background as well. And I think that coming from sort of that sort of background gave me sort of a sense that I needed to do everything by brute force, and I needed to do it all alone. And, I wasn't going to ask for help because that's weakness. And that was a big mistake. I think that people, you don't do anything alone. Like, we are all part of the village together. And so I think reaching out and asking for mentorship, seeking out help, people want to help. People want to feel like the slings and arrows they've dealt with have given them something that they can then share. So I didn't really deeply understand and live the value of seeking mentorship for much too long. But I think it's something really important to do. And I think it has made my journey harder than it needed to be, because I didn't seek the help that I could have gotten, versus thinking I had to do it all by myself.
Thank you. Yep. And that's a great perspective. Thank you. So Tiffany, I'd like to ask you next. You have significant experience being a liaison between third-party technical programmers as well as the Board of Education leaders. Can you discuss some of the soft and hard skills that are required to both manage up and down? I find that in data science, that's definitely something that a lot of us will find ourselves in throughout our career.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Of all the experience I have, I think the thing I use most every day is my communications degree, for sure. Especially when it comes to relaying information, whether it be statistics and analytics or just more technical information about the website, redesigning it. When you're going from a developer who could speak to me in code and I'll understand him and he understands me, but then I have to take it to the president of the Board of Education, who is a retired special education teacher who needs help using Facebook. Different skill sets require different terminology. Well, I can sit to him and look at code and we can go, well, I kind of don't like this. Can we make it do this? When it comes to speaking with the Board of Education, I have to realize what skill set I'm going up against, not look at it as necessarily something that will hinder them, but as how to use that to my advantage. So if I'm talking to the Board of Education and we're talking about the website, for example, we did a big redesign of our website and the header this past beginning of the school year. And even the smallest changes for a website in a public sector like that requires the approval of about 19 people in every department you can imagine. There's 10 different people to sign off on it. So with that many cooks in the kitchen, you're going to get lots of opinions. And when none of the cooks in the kitchen besides me has the technical background that can tell you no, websites don't do that, you're going to get pushback. They want certain things on the website because it's important, because they need it to be up there for the families, because they need it to be up there for maybe legal reasons. And I need to come to them and say, yes, but you need to be able to read the website. You need to be able to see it on multiple screens. So going to them, I have found that the best way to do that is usually visually, especially when it comes to a website. If you can show people, even when it comes to analytics, they love bars and graphs and charts, especially when they don't understand the analytics, and walk them through it. I'll have board members who will come up to me and they go, well, what was our views on that last video? It's like, well, that's really important. The views were, 10,000, and that's really important. But what we really want to look at is how many click-throughs did we get to our website? Because that was the main reason we put the video there. Great if they watched all the way to the end. Doesn't really matter to me as long as they click through and go to the website. So making sure that when you're talking to people and telling them, okay, this is what goal you have for it, and while that may or may not be realistic, I want you to also look at this. You need to do the explaining as to why. I have a lot of people that are in much higher positions than me that I almost have to educate. And I'm educating other educators, which they don't always like that. So learning how to talk to them, how to listen to them, and how to talk to them in a way where you're just expanding their knowledge, you're not pointing out what they don't know. I think that's a big one. That's a good way of getting people on the same page. And then if you're on the same page, you can make a plan from there.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And before we open it up to the public questions, I think we have time for one more question here. Steve, I'd like to ask you, the idea of finding a mentor or even the mentorship concept may not be that common for, people that are coming to the US and studying or working from other countries, particularly Chinese students. We had a conversation about this, but how would you describe the mentoring relationship, and what kind of guidance would you have? What kind of guidance have you received from your data science mentors?
Oh, yeah, sure. So that's actually a really good question. And then, so when I first came to, US, I wasn't super familiar with the concept of mentorship. And then, because I feel like if I have questions, there's a lot of people you can go ask. For example, how to prepare for classes, get an internship, get a job or so. But, once I kind of advance into my career, some of the questions kind of have to be more specific and then target and based on my own experiences. Like, for example, when I was doing my internship back in Chicago, the internship program was really designed where they give you managers assign you a daily responsibility or works, and then they also give you a mentor so you can talk to about some of your future goals. So they also list a lot of things you have to check off during your 3 months internship. For example, you have to have bi-weekly conversation with your mentors, invite 5 people in a company to have lunch and then chat with your career goals. So all of those are actually quite new to me. And then maybe it was a coincidence, but the mentor assigned to me also happened to be an international student from China, and then he was pursuing PhD at the same school I did my master. I was doing my master time. So, after I expressing my future career goals and everything, he gave me a very, important advice. That was if I actually determined to become a leader in this industry or be able to expose myself to more complicated projects, and doing a PhD, it seems to be a really, it's actually a recommended route to things to do next. And also he shared some of the personal experiences, stories where he has to maintain a full-time job and a family, and also pursue a part-time PhD. So it's actually quite challenging for him to do at that time. And then, so that actually changed my plan. By having him as my mentor, I actually get to make the change my decision and then start to pursue PhD that time. I believe I was the only student deciding to go into a PhD during my cohort that year. So later on, when I was doing my trainings at USC, my advisor, Kim Sigmund, also happened to working with Madeline when Madeline was working at USC as well. So she not only served as a research advisor, but also is a mentor to me as well. But later on, when I found out that I actually would like to pursue a career in data science, I feel like I probably need to start talking to someone who have a lot of experiences in the same field I would like to pursue my career in. So luckily, going to meetups, Our Ladies or our users group, there's a lot of people who have many years of work experience also would like to contribute to the community. So just by working with them, I get to chat with them, and then sometimes they will come over to talk about some of the talks I gave. So I think, and also I help them with maintaining either like social media and then help with the data science hackathon. So by doing all the things together, I feel like it started to build this kind of trust between us. So where later on when I start to prepare looking for jobs, they give me a lot of helps, like definitely editing my resume, doing like mock interviews together, and then also have really constructive feedbacks. For example, you have a lot of projects with R, but not necessarily in Python, and then maybe trying to expose yourself to some of the cloud service as well, like AWS, or the way you describe your project was a little bit too academic, so maybe trying to put them into a more professional way. So there's a lot of things I learned from them, and then so definitely that was helping me with my job application process last year. So right now I still keep like a constant, I would say like a regular, just check in with them as well, not necessarily have to call or have a meeting, but just text them saying that, hey, this is what I'm doing pretty fine recently, and some of the things I'm really trying to learn, and then make another move in my professional development. And then they will check in with me, to give some such suggestion on that one as well. Yeah, so that's pretty much my experience with seeking mentorship by studying at US. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's really good perspective. Thanks.
Do what she did, not what I did.
What did you do?
Oh, in terms of seeking mentors and things like that. That's kind of what I meant.
Oh.
So we wanted to leave some time for questions from the audience. Alyssa, is it all right if we start opening it up to the questions from the forum? And I have a bird in the background that's going a little crazy. My apologies.
That's all right. Yep, it's okay.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's a little after 8. This time was allotted for questions from the audience. So, yeah. Javier, do you have the link? I sent you it earlier. If
Yes, I have it up right now. Yep.
Okay.
Let's see here. Someone did ask about contact info for the panelists. I think what Alyssa will be doing is putting LinkedIn profiles on the GitHub repository for this event, or it will be on the GitHub repository for Our Ladies Irvine, and there will be a link with regard to this event. Yeah.
Can I add to that, Javier?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Please.
I'm also not only planning on adding it to our GitHub repository, but also planning on adding it to the follow-up email that we'll be sending to everyone after this event. So yeah, it'll also be easier to find in that way too.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I've been popping in on some of the side conversation here, just additional questions, follow-up questions on the Zoom group chat. I love just the excitement here. So thank you all. Okay, so one really good question comes from someone asking, to get a job in data science, is the experience or degree emphasized more? This particular individual said, I'm a current graduate student in physical sciences who uses big environmental data sets. So if any of the panelists would like to field that question, please just feel free to.
I'll jump in to start because this is something I have very strong opinions about. I'm going to try to not resort to profanity, but I don't give a what your degree's in. In fact, I hired a guy with a PhD in philosophy, and if the PhD didn't matter at all, in the sense that, I think that it's important in data science to have a variety of different perspectives. I mean, I think you have to have the relevant technical skills, but as long as you can kind of help the hiring person understand how your sort of background translates into what they need to do. You kind of have to help them with that sometimes more if you're coming from a non-traditional background. But if you can help them do that, I think you end up in sometimes at an advantage over, because now there's like 10 billion masters in data science degrees. And so, if you look a little different, that can actually be a positive branding factor if you can kind of effectively communicate how what you've done translates and how it is a strength and how it can help me be more effective in what I'm trying to do as a hiring leader.
So I'd just like to give the opposite perspective of that, because I feel like in my field, it really matters what your degree is in. And I've been on hiring boards in biostatistics, and I feel like people are very biased towards what your degree is in. So I think it depends upon, what field you're actually applying into.
Thank you.
Yeah, to chime in a little bit from my perspective, I think to Colleen's point, it does depend maybe a little bit on the industry. Like maybe if you're working on a very niche type of, problem, you probably need to have some sort of academic background in that. But in my personal experience, I agree more with Karin, just because data science in marketing and operations and that sort of thing is very much an applied quote unquote science. It's almost like, and I'm guilty of this too, because I've gone down the rabbit hole of wanting to learn absolutely everything and getting like a certificate or something in absolutely everything, or like getting books and studying all these various different things. But I think that at the end of the day, if you haven't done it, it's like it doesn't bring a ton of value. And now being in a role where we're actually hiring a VP currently of analytics and interviewing people who like they have a PhD or they have a master's in something that's seemingly very applicable, but they don't have a ton of experience. And even now, I'm considering domain expertise even more, I think, than I used to, because maybe you studied something and you have actual like you've applied your technical knowledge or your statistical knowledge into something, but you haven't worked in a particular domain that requires a particular set of understanding. So for me, I think experience is more important, just because like learning something in an academic setting versus doing it are vastly different experiences, I find.
Thank you. Yeah. Let me see, there are several questions on the Zoom group chat. Madeline has a question for Colleen. How did you support yourself while making the transition from academia to starting your own consulting business?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was pretty lucky in that I had started a consulting center at San Diego State when I was there. And so I had quite a few clients that I took from academia into consulting and to starting up my own business. And I also worked part-time making that transition. I worked part-time at UCSD for their consulting center at the Morse Cancer Center, and was kind of growing my business at that time. So that's basically how I did it. I worked part-time in a regular job and tried to grow my business at the same time. So it just takes a few years, I think, to gear up to the point where you can support yourself.
Thank you. Yeah. Linda asks, any advice for learning the math and stats to improve the tool set for data analysis? Is it unrealistic to self-teach or not? Z mentioned mixed modeling, differential expression analysis, clustering analysis, and machine learning modeling. It all sounds very cool.
I can take that question. I think some of the methods kind of unique to the question, what kind of question you look at. Like for example, all the examples I just give it to you, they are often the methods we go into when we deal with the customers, because the data we analyze were primarily just like gene expression data. So some of the classic technicals that we always have to do is just to look at the differential expression analysis to see any of the genes has differentially expressed across some of the group they're interested in. And then people also, seems like, when you have this kind of genomic data, the dimension of the predictors is much larger than the samples. So that's why, having some dimension reduction method is very important too. And then especially right now, people are really fascinated by the power of the machine learning models, where we also want to apply them to the genes expression data, and then trying to have something was predictive of the outcome that the customer is interested in. And then, for example, if you go into some of another field where they have a very different data set, I know like right now, most of the data were kind of the relational ones that we deal with in the row and the columns. Maybe the data could be the data from the social media, could be image and then videos. Then in that case, it's less likely those traditional statistical methods will be in use, but more likely about neural network and the deep learning and some of the methods from the computer visions. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Z. If I could just chime in, just a follow-up to Z's comment. I just recently graduated from a master's program at UCI, and I don't want to make it sound like I didn't learn anything there. I think it gave me a lot of motivation to apply my experiences and, really dig into the things I found useful or beneficial. But in terms of like teaching yourself something, I don't think it is unrealistic at all to self-teach. I think it's very difficult to find the time and the determination to have a regular cadence for which you can do that type of self-teaching. Mm-hmm. If you're committed to doing that, I actually think self-learning in this field is super possible right now.
Yeah, I agree. This is the same things I have to deal with as well. It's very easy to procrastinate when you have a big goals out there. And then, of course, first things you can do just to split them into like a baby steps. Another very useful things I do a lot too is joining a study group. I know study group sounds like so school, but even though you left school, there is still a lot of opportunities out there online, and people saying that, hey, maybe we can just spend like an hour in the Starbucks nearby, and then we can trying to go through the book together. For example, Element of the Statistical Learning is a very classic books if you want to learn like machine learnings. And then I know like Orange County, our user group have been forming a book club to going through this book together. Or if you want to just practice some of the Python projects, there are also like Python study group out there, so you can sit down and ask questions and then get to showcase some of the things you learn about Python as well. So I would say that having a study group and then having some friends getting together, going through towards some of the goals is definitely at least very important for me to learn something new by myself. Mm-hmm.
Linda, I'll send you the context of this. I feel like I should get paid by our studio here, but this book, R for Data Science, is incredible. I mean, it's meant for people wanting to learn basics in statistics. This book as well, Hands-on Machine Learning with R. I mean, this first one is sort of a beginner book. I still look at it a few times a month. This one I read a few times a month, just different sections of it. This book, Advanced R. I mean, these are the 3 books. I have, like Leondra said, I feel like I have, I don't know, a ton of books at this point, and these 3 ones are the ones that I recommend to all my friends that want to get into analytics or data science, but that's just my perspective.
Hey, Alyssa, O'Reilly, I saw O'Reilly as a sponsor. Can they hook us up with that first one or something if Linda needs it?
Yeah, actually, R for Data Science is completely free online to everyone. But yeah, it's R, literally the number 4 ds.hadley.nz or something like that. If you Google
Yes.
R for Data Science, you'll find both the free book and the free online learning community, which is like a study group that structures each of the different chapters, which is like each of the different key concepts in R week by week. And they're a very supportive community there too. Anyway, with the O'Reilly sponsorship too, we have access to discounts and other perks with O'Reilly that I'll send out in the email follow-up. Thanks for bringing that up, Karin.
All these books are actually free online as well. You could pay for the hard copy, but they're all available for free online. So, yeah. Let's see. Other questions?
I'd like to add one more book to the list of books that we've already said. It's called Modern Dive, and it's another one of those free online R books, but this one really dives deep into R and statistics. Like R for Data Science is like the beginner book for knowing how to work with data in R and do data manipulation and data visualization and the project workflow in R. Whereas Modern Dive goes into t-tests, ANOVA, everything that you can think of with regards to an undergraduate or graduate stats class in R. So I'd highly recommend that as well. It's just
What
called
was the name
Modern
of that?
Dive. What?
Modern Dive?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
In the follow-up where you have the links, maybe could you include the titles of these books? I think it'd be helpful just to have them all in one place.
Perfect. And I can work with you with, yeah.
Oh. Sorry, yes, definitely we'll include the links and titles of all of these books in our follow-up.
Yeah, I think like when we end the Zoom meeting, it's gonna save the script somewhere in the folders that we can share later. Yeah.
Leondra, we didn't get to one of the questions I had prepared for you, but I think it's an interesting one. Also something that we've talked about before, but we had a discussion about whether or not data science roles are becoming more specialized, often with increasing educational requirements. Can you elaborate on this just a bit more and give us your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we have talked about this a couple times because it's such an interesting topic when you look at how data science is defined as a distinction sort of in certain companies, right? And even in certain departments. I think even within the same company, it can vary from department to department, from startups to huge corporations that are well established. Sort of the breadth of the technology and background you need to have varies. And so in one aspect, I find that we're almost, I see sometimes job descriptions that ask for you to know everything under the sun, with like all the cloud things, right? All the cloud computing technology, Keras, TensorFlow, you got to know it all. You got to know all the deep learning. You got to know Python, R, C#. You got to know SQL, NoSQL. You have to have the whole enchilada. And it's like, I don't even think that's even true though. Like, I think they put that because they're almost like trying to cast a wide net and they're trying to maybe like get the most out of the deal that they can out of a candidate. And in the process, I think the perception of a data science role has become this magician, one hat fits all type role where someone has to know everything. But in reality, maybe that is somewhat the case in startups where they have like one data guy or lady. But I think in more established companies, I think that it's actually becoming more focused, because what I find is that, you know, you'll have this role and they're like, it'll be nice if you know SQL, R or Python or whatever. And, you know, hopefully you have some experience with these particular types of models on this particular type of business problem. But then when you get to the actual job interview, they're like, oh, that's cool, you know all that stuff, but have you done like a particular sentiment analysis, like on this particular like social media website, or like have you actually done like topic modeling or something like that? Like they'll get super specific. And I think it's because even though they cast a wide net, when they're actually boiling it down to who they need, not who they are wishing for, but who they need, it's actually a fairly focused individual. Because I think that it's almost a tad absurd to expect someone to know all these things. I mean, we're only people, and I think even if someone did know all these things, they wouldn't even have time to really focus really on one of those many things. And in reality, if you're meeting deadlines, which is a thing in industry, you need someone to build the data pipelines. You need someone to clean the data or explore the data or model the data. So it's sort of still in the air. I haven't really decided if it's truly become more specialized or if it's become more broad, but I suspect that it's actually becoming more specialized, and that the way that they find talent has just become flawed, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Here's a question from Jessica Huey. How can you get experience while in a master's program?
I think it depends upon what kind of experience you want, but there's lots of internships out there, and I would definitely suggest trying to get an internship while you're doing a master's program. But you know, I think you want to figure out more specifically what field you want to go into, what industry and what types of companies you would want to work for, and then try to find an internship with that company. There's lots of companies that take interns.
And I think that, you know, one thing about getting experience is it's like a beautiful day where there's data everywhere now that you can access very easily and do interesting projects and bring them and talk about them. And that's a way to get experience in any area you want, right? Because there's massive amounts of, if you're interested in public health, well, hell, there's a million COVID-19 data sets out there now. If you're interested in demographics, like, you know, ipums.org has census data from 1790. Like, so I think that getting experience in a business context is beneficial for sure. Like, I think doing an internship is absolutely great advice. I also think there's ways to get an experience though with like just sitting back from your desk, because like nobody can stand in your way now, right? Like you can do a Kaggle competition, and that counts in my view as experience. When I see someone who's got some good, has participated in Kaggle competitions and has come out pretty high on, you know, the list, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. And that, as far as I'm concerned, counts as experience, because I want somebody who can do something. I'm not sitting there like, oh, I need somebody who's been sitting in this particular type of desk for 6 months. Like, I need to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And I know what I need to do, but I need someone's help. And so I think that getting experience does not necessarily have to be as traditional as it might have been in the past.
Yeah, I also want to talk about getting experience, getting an internship as well. Because usually some of the internships, they don't accept graduating students. They only take like first year students, and then you are supposed to go back to school after the internship. So which means you only have the opportunity to do your internship during at the end of the first year. Then you need to start looking for a job in the March or maybe after Christmas if the position is really popular, which means you only have half year of what you just learned, and you need to have that to get an internship, which is extremely difficult for someone just switch from another career to the data science. So that's why I also want to, echo the same opinions as well. Even though if you cannot get an internship, maybe you can try to do some volunteer work with some of the professors. They're always, welcome to graduate students to help them analyze the data. It does not necessarily have to be like a paid research internship. And also, be able to get yourself to expose to like more interesting projects. Kaggle is definitely the to-go place as well. Also, I want to advertise our data science hackathon as well, where you really spend the weekend, only 2 days to work with this data set and be able to develop your own story and give a presentation out of it. And then remember, we have, committees sitting and then judge your performance and give different, award as well. For example, last year, I, sent a data science hackathon link to some of the students at USC. And then they actually got one of the award that USC decided to write a news report about the exciting achievements they get. So that was something they get to put on their resume and then to brag about. So definitely there's a lot of opportunities out there, and then besides internship as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I think everyone mentioned really great ideas with internships and volunteering. I know there's quite a few nonprofit organizations that post opportunities where you can sort of get a little bit more applied experience, like DataKind. I think it's Statisticians Without Borders or something like that. They have a lot of volunteer opportunities. There's quite a few. In fact, I can probably make a list or something and send it over to our hosts. But there's also virtual internships now, because I know it's very complicated getting internships right now with COVID. There's this website called Inside Sherpa, and they host internships, like digital experiences, what they call them, through various different organizations like KPGM, JP Morgan Chase, ANZ, General Electric has a data analytics internship, and pretty much anyone, it's not like very formal, pretty much anyone gets in, but it's like they give you a data set and they give you a problem to solve. And then at the end of it, I think they actually like bump you up in their, like if you apply to a job at those companies, I think you actually get preferred because you completed that program. So I would recommend that. And I would also recommend, if you can, just trying to find a problem that really interests you or a topic that really interests you, doing a passion project and like putting it on your GitHub or something like that. I know my favorite film is The Matrix, so I did like a natural language processing project of the script to The Matrix just for fun. And also I'm getting married next year, and we're putting together like a wedding playlist, and we didn't want to put anything on there where the lyrics were too different because it's kind of a combined effort. So I figured maybe I'll do like a natural language processing or like some sort of topic modeling or sentiment analysis of the songs that we put together to see if there's anything that doesn't fit the general theme. So like you can just find anything. Maybe you like skateboarding or you like video games and you want to analyze some Resident Evil data or something. Like whatever it is that you're into, I think it'll be really interesting and fun for you to talk about in interviews.
Dungeons and Dragons? Any D&D players out there, you know? Well, if we have time for one quick question, Robin asked if anyone on the panel is available for mentorship.
That's a funny question. So full disclosure, Robin is actually my mom, if anyone's wondering why we have the same last name. My mom, she's actually getting into, she's studying public health right now. So I've actually been collaborating with her on some of her classes and stuff. And it's been a really great bonding opportunity. And I actually, in our meeting session before this, I was actually grouped with Alyssa's dad too, in addition to my mom. So that was really interesting. So I just want to put that out there because I just felt it was funny that she asked that.
And for me, I mean, I'm definitely, you know, willing to help mentor. I'll be frank, my time is pretty limited. So I'm not like somebody who you can get into a daily email chain with probably. But I'm absolutely, like, I'm very passionate about helping other women. And so, you know, if it's a conversation or looking at, you know, resume or just want to, you know, hey, thinking about this, happy to have a conversation. But I think just, you know, I just want to set expectations that I've got, you know, kids and job and everything. So I'm not super available, but I'm happy to have conversations and just build connection, because I think it's those weak ties that you have that will help you kind of find the opportunities that are best for you and learn the things you need to learn.
Yeah, just to echo what Karin just said, same with me. If you have any questions or want any advice, especially in the social media world, or if you're interested in getting in the public sector, like especially K-12 education is where a lot of my experience has been lately, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am a mom and a wife, so I am very busy too, but I always try to get back as quickly as I possibly can. You can always email me too, or social media. Believe it or not, easiest way to find me.
Yeah, same here as well. I think I just left my LinkedIn page earlier in the chat as well, and then there's a couple of people already adding me on LinkedIn as well. So I, you know, definitely feel free to leave your questions in the chat, and then either could be something like, you know, help review the LinkedIn page, and then how to build a personal portfolio website. And then since I actually, you know, in my early stage of my career as well, so I also need to learn a lot of things from the panelists here today as well. But I would like to share with you some of my experience when I, you know, looking for a job last year, and then like some of the internships, some of the interviews I had. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm definitely available for questions as well, although my availability is a bit limited also.
I'm always available on LinkedIn as well, just to chime in. I might be a week or two late, but I definitely don't let a LinkedIn message, you know, fall into an email abyss. So I'm always happy to.
I occasionally do though, so you might have to email me twice.
Same here. I'd like to chime in. I'm also available for mentoring. Like, unlike the other panelists where I'm kind of busy, I'm pursuing a master's degree while working full time, but I'm always happy to help people with their questions about learning R or professional development in this area too. So, any final questions before we move on? This was a wonderful panel. I'm so glad that we were able to do this. We were able to hang out with all of you guys.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I think, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm going to join you guys, especially since you're virtual. When I have to drive to Orange County again, that probably wouldn't work, but.
True.
Thanks for all your help setting this up, Alyssa and Madeline. I really appreciate your coordination, and all the panelists. Thank you so much for responding to our many emails and, you know, being able to participate on this panel. I think it was a great event. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks for organizing.
Yeah, thanks to everyone.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, all of you.
Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Hope everyone has a great Tuesday evening.
Thanks, you too.